Hello, everybody. Hey, this is Wes Young. I'm a director of sales here for North America at Rakuten 6 Cents. I have with me GK. GK, how you doing?
I'm good, Wes. How about you?
Excellent. We're going to take some time and have a discussion about data governance, the importance of data governance, and our ideas that guardrails are the way to get your payback on data governance. And by the way, things that you can measure are important to this too. Um, we're going to take probably about a half hour, make some discussions about recent events in the US attributed to the data governance and the framework of that, and how we relate to that, and how we make that uh, able to able to manage that and put guardrails around it. Um, Talk about the lineage and change in the game that we can bring along, and then the rollout plan about what we can do and how we can help with putting the guardrails around data governance. Most companies pay a hidden tax. We call it a data tax every year, and it amounts to just about more than 5.2, $5.3 million a year. So in the next 25 minutes or so, we can dig deep into data governance, why with Rakuten and what we do with 6 Cents, we can help manage that and take you into more of a deeper role into how we can fix that, keep a guardrail in place, and the guardrail is a way for us to be able to manage that as we go forward.
Thanks a lot, Wes. And that's a wonderful agenda. Totally looking forward to our discussion here, and hopefully, we'll have some interesting questions from the participants. And just so the folks know, as a part of the importance that we have on data governance and a lot of use cases that we're dealing with, whole of September is a data governance month here at Rakuten 6.
Very good.
And this webinar is a part of multiple things that we're doing. Watch out for multiple articles, and of course, this webinar as well. So, Wes, back in the US, walk us through what's happening when it comes to the overall, data side of the world. Any interesting incidents that we should be looking at, and where we can, pitch in.
Yeah, there's been some interesting things happen over the last 12 to 18 months or so within multiple different industries. The difference is data pipelines are fragile, and material business is impacted by this, and it's been impacted in a number of different areas. Just take, for example, United Healthcare. Some ransomware took down claims in pharmacy nationwide, and testimony confirmed that the multi-factor authentication, there was a gap there in the server, and the downtime, the revenue actually impacted quite a bit of the patient access, and the revenue was an issue there, the flow of revenue. Just one example of that. In telecom, AT&T, everybody knows about AT&T. This is widely acclaimed that data for about 73 million people, current and former customers of AT&T, appeared on the dark web, and they were just exposed. And AT&T had to reset all the passcodes, notify the customers. Just the cost of that alone to go through what it takes to reinitiate that and get the confidence back of the people is very costly. Within entertainment, this one was quite interesting. Live Nation, they had about 8,000 disclosed unauthorized accesses to third-party databases. And then as far as Santander Bank goes, a snowflake-linked event happened there, and about 12,000 of their employees were exposed. Loan Depot, huge mortgage loan company in January of 2024, had a ransomware impact of about 16 million individuals, and it disrupted the organization's services, and a cybersecurity issue that really set them back. This one was pretty much within CDK Global, where they are an automotive retailer. And what they do is were affected because the ransomware knocked out the dealer system. So the US dealers across probably 2 to 3 weeks lost the ability and couldn't write up deals. They actually were doing them by hand for a number of weeks, and then they get about $25 million in ransomware that they had to pay to get back on track again. So this just affects all of the industries. It's not specific to any one industry, and it directly affects bottom line.
Right. And all of this sound really scary, Wes, because if you look at the labels here, there's healthcare, which entails a lot of personal information, a lot of bio
Yeah,
information. And this is just a representative of what's happening around the world. And recently we saw how, not that these companies are any lesser, but companies such as Google, Apple, and Meta, all of them put together had a huge breach. And there were multiple events that led to the breach until it was acknowledged in terms of the scale and the blast radius it had. And detecting those much earlier would have actually prevented, right, the kind of depth into which the incident and the impact it had.
yeah, yeah. The data breaches are true attacks. We're seeing attacks, and the effect that companies have on pushing AI now is that it's heavily dependent on getting to AI, and without some type of guardrails in place as to how you set up governance, we find that the house is burning, and what that means is across all of these industries, they have to be aware of being attacked at all the time. Um, Most of the blind spots that you see uh, come about when you're not prepared. A lot of these industries do not have um, the ability to see what's coming, and it usually gets them by surprise. And it's not just the effect for the IT group; it's showing up in the boardroom, and the boardroom's finding out that the problems pretty much uh, after the fact is where they find out that they've got an issue. So I kind of touched on the data points that lead to what you need to do here in regulatory. Some of the in the U.S. Particularly, there is some pressure by the U.S. to make sure that you can maintain um, visibility into what your data is able to manage, what you're able to do to protect it. GK, what do you think some of the impact is across the US and other parts of the world?
Right. Yeah, like you rightly started, Wes, when it comes to the federal agencies, they're particularly concerned about how the data of the citizens is being managed by multiple companies. And
Yeah,
this is where the fintech side of the world is usually at the forefront of having massive budgets to invest in the latest technology, because that's where a lot of security, encryption, safety of the data comes into play. While that is on one side of the thing, the other side, they have a lot of campaigns that they run in terms of coming up with new products, be it new campaigns for their credit cards or being able to onboard multiple users across the world and handle multiple systems. There are transactions happening at the scale of millions per second, and being able to not just give the correct status, but also ensure that these are well taken care of. And usually, when it comes to banking, it's very lucrative for many of these cyber criminals, because if they're able to latch onto something, then the price according to them is a huge scale, right?
yeah,
And that's where the regulatory and the federal bodies feel a lot of responsibility in terms of ensuring that there are enough clamps that are in place, because it's them who authorize the banks to come into existence. At the same time, they're also responsible for the citizens' data. At the same time, when these cyber incidents happen, somewhere the government and federal agencies also feel responsible, and that's where you rightly said the house is burning. But
mhm,
what are we collectively going to do to douse it and take things under control? And that's why a lot of these solutions, and especially on the SaaS side of things, how the multi-tenancy, and in terms of the Snowflake example that you took, that had 165 Snowflake customer accounts. And these, when it goes into wrong hands, anything can happen, right? And then that's where you start looking at both macro level impact and the micro level impact. Because when you look at the macro level, some of these companies are representatives of their industry itself, right? And if
Yeah.
things can go wrong with them, then the reputation goes for a toss, and it has a massive business impact. Now, let's say, for example, the ticketing industry and the entertainment industry. Now, while people do feel necessary to, book tickets and, indulge in some entertainment, but when these things happen, maybe they say, "Oh, my data is no more safe, so let me hold back and maybe not go to events." Right? It can happen, and that's where these companies, being the representatives of the industry, not just are feeling responsible to safeguard their customer information and their technology stack, but also be the representatives of someone who can prevent all of these and stand as a benchmark to the industry and also inspire other industries as well. So that's where the ownership mindset comes in, not just with the regulatory and the federal agencies, but also with the companies that operate in those jurisdictions. What do you think?
Yeah. Um, More and more, uh, the awareness of this is coming in place. People, they're looking at how you set this up. You'd mentioned scale, but also with that is speed and the scrutiny on it. Um, and people are asking where the ROI is for being able to put guardrails around this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right from the time that OpenAI and ChatGPT, took that massive birth, of course, a lot of preparation led in multiple years of preparation led into its birth. And the uptake has been rather rapid, if you see, right? A lot of budgets are being diverted towards automation,
Yeah,
AI-based platforms, so AI-based workflows, agentic AIs, and how companies are looking at automating a lot of these things and freeing up the workforce to its many more creative, creative work, or looking at spending more time with the customers. Now, up until now, we've seen a lot of POCs and pilot projects in terms of vetting and verifying the abilities of the AI. But then, like you rightly said, the boardrooms and the CXOs who've thus far authorized the budgets are now looking at the ROIs that these projects can bring to them, because they're planning the next decade, they're planning the next 5 to 10 years. What projects do they get onto, and how do they serve their customers in newer ways, and bring in that, right from hyper personalization in e-commerce, or it could be in the life sciences. You touched upon speed, and that's where how can life sciences companies accelerate the duration of the clinical trials itself. What can they extrapolate in a manner that the regulatory bodies feel it's acceptable, or if they have to go through a do-over of a clinical trial, how do they accelerate that? Or even after the drug or the medicine is out there in the market, the post-launch analysis, how can they accelerate that leveraging AI? So a lot of these projects are now being pushed into large scale production. And during the POCs and the pilots, maybe monitoring was not that much of a focus, right? Because you're trying to see if the functionality works or not. But once you scale it, and then roll it out into production, now from few hundred users, it's literally touching upon millions of users, right? If you're talking about big companies who are building these LLMs, and more so even for Rakuten, right? We are building our own
right.
LLM as well. And with the kind of hyper personalization that we want to do, with the kind of initiatives that we're embarking on, and we are extremely cognizant about the kind of data that we deal with, and that's where scrutiny comes into play. While monitoring and observability is one side of the coin, data
Mhm.
governance is key, and that's where it lays down the guide rails that we have to take. And while for many companies and multiple user personas, governance is usually looked at as a third party. I'm baffled to learn many companies have even outsourced it. Yeah, in a manner of thinking, it's okay while they want to optimize the costs. But everyone who deals with data, according to me, is a representative of data governance, right? At least there should be one person who's a data governance champion in every team that they deal with across the end-to-end modern data stack. And that's where more and more you look at it. It's no more a policy or a blueprint or a framework. Of course, it is a framework, but it's much more than that. And it has to manifest itself and embed itself deeply across the end-to-end modern data stack. Because as the AI shift happens, there's
Yeah.
another shift that is happening, which is the system modernization. Because if you have to make AI happen, you will have to modernize all of your system. And that's where companies moving from, let's say, the on-premise to cloud. Data migration is also a part of the modernization effort. And being able to catch the right signals as to where things are going wrong is very crucial. And that's where having visibility of the end-to-end lineage, which we'll touch upon a bit, becomes all the more crucial. And it's not just about this visibility, but who's having the ownership of what aspect becomes very crucial, because it's not just about classifying what's going on and having that framework in place, but also who owns what, right? At the end of the day, defining that clear RACI metrics is a part of the overall data governance, aspect. And of course, all of this, how do you demonstrate this to your CXOs, as they are also focusing a lot on this, becomes all the more crucial.
Yeah. And
So,
you've touched a couple of times on the fact
mhm,
that there's a rush to get to AI. And in
mhm,
doing so, in hesitance, if you don't have some guardrails around this, what we're going to see is there'll be mistakes made. And
yeah.
it adds to that cost.
Absolutely. And that's a good point you bring up, Wes, because if you see data governance as a separate unit that is not a part of your overall solutioning, right? You look at it as a scrutiny body. No, you have to look at it as a part of your overall solutioning, right from your conceptual stage. And even after the product is rolled out all the way through. Otherwise, you want to get your KPIs wrong. And if you get them wrong, and then what you're demonstrating to the CXOs who are working with their stakeholders and the venture capitalists, maybe they're making the wrong bets, and that's where you're putting your overall AI initiatives at risk. And then slowly you start seeing the mistakes or the redundancies in those mistakes suddenly are at a cusp and they start exploding. And even before boardroom talks
Yeah.
and now summons from the regulatory bodies, right? And it can be in the scope of GDPR laws or CCPA or multiple PDPA laws, like we see in Southeast Asian countries. And when these things happen, the talent, the rich and the great talent that companies have, they might stand to lose them as well to the competitors. So not only losing
Right.
on market share, but you're unable to hire the right kind of talent for you to build the kind of systems that you would want to take pride in. So it's a multi-layered and multi-level ripple impact. And it can happen in unimaginable ways and in a very rapid scale that you won't even know what hit you.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
And that's where
Oh,
the macro trends that we've started talking upon have started taking shape in terms of not just the overall stack consolidation. You see the lake houses of the world, you see DBTs, icebergs, and all of those taking a greater shape. But also the lineage across all of these and how ownership policies are coming into play. And in terms of how one controls the overall changes that happen to the schema and how they can be tied to the KPIs and eventually how do you manage the incidents, right? So some of these macro trends, this is what we would definitely love to reiterate there. So
yeah.
while this is happening, so all of these are on the governance side of things, policy side of things, but product and engineering, right, cannot be ignored. And that's where a lot of the enterprise thinking, the platform thinking comes in. And that's where the responsibility of coupling closely with the governance and policies come into play. And that's where Rakuten Six Sense data observability has evolved a lot in the recent past, working with our internal businesses and also the external clients that we've had across multiple domains, fintech, global wellness companies, airline companies, retail chains, and insurance across the world. So one of the key points that we want to drive here is every time there's a data incident, it's typically assumed as the scope that falls into a data platform team. But what also, a lot of the times that we've seen and made companies realize it falls under the overall data governance scope as well, and hence it becomes a data governance incident. So it's not that when an incident happens, you solve it through your tech stack or certain run books that help you give you some preventive measures, and then you stop at that. No, you have to continuously go back to your data governance frameworks and see how you evolve them, right? It's not just a book of rules that was written once and it's there etched in stone forever. And
Yep.
that is where, from a Rakuten Six Sense perspective, we would like to propose a six-dimensional data governance framework. Of course, some of the elements that you've seen here, we've been talking about it from a perspective of data observability pillars. But when you put these all together under the overall umbrella of what typically the world is known when it comes to data governance, in terms of a framework, in terms of classification, in terms of rules and regulations and policies, it presents a whole new side of the game for the companies.
Yeah, that's the importance of having a single view into this and being able to map this all together.
Right. And what we've also seen is when incident happen, one of the key conflicts that happen is, like it or not, oh, my team was not responsible for this. So we had the rules and
Yeah,
regulations that we've stuck to. Maybe this is not my responsibility, right? So what typically we call in management, diffusion of responsibility happens, but eventually, no matter who's taking the responsibility or not, the truth is the event has occurred. There is a business impact. At the end of the day, you're losing customers, right? And that's where having a framework helps in aligning the teams towards a common standard with which they operate on, and eventually drawing out the clear ownership across the end-to-end data stack will really help. So that's the Six Sense holistic data governance framework. So let's dive into peel out each one of this as we take you through some examples.
yeah,
First and foremost is the data quality. This simply cannot be ignored. And while data quality has multiple aspects to it, some could be as simple as syntactic aspects to, let's say, oh, my primary column cannot be null, all the way till the business validations that happen. Let's say, for instance, if a user is registering from let's say Europe, then there has to be a certain currency value that the storage layer has to take care of, right? So it can be at multiple dimensions. But do people across the entire data stack have a common understanding of underscoring these syntactic checks versus the business validation? And the reason why this is important is because just earlier today, I was talking to a data engineer who, of course, like you can imagine, is dealing with at least 10 to 20 issues on a daily basis. But
sure.
though he's fixing issues, I found him to be not so happy, and I asked him, why are you unhappy? All right, your manager helped you in terms of prioritizing this. You spoke to the product manager and the architect in terms of the fix that has to be made. So his gripe was, yeah, I fixed these issues, but I wonder what actual impact is it making to the end user, right? So he lacked a certain sense of the business, and immediately it was a signal of the alignment towards a certain aspect of data quality with the business wasn't there. And that's where the tech teams and the business teams have to be deeply engraved towards aligning that kind of the data quality. Now
Yeah,
that's where moving from isolated kind of data quality towards something that the entire set of teams understand is where data governance becomes important. Because your data governance, it can be a team or it can be a collective emergence of all the teams coming together and saying, here is how we'll manage the data quality, how each team would define the data quality in their own terms, but at the same time bring in the uniformity across the layer and say, okay, fine, here is the common understanding of the data quality that we have. And when we say data quality, it's not just the rules, but it also entails certain other important elements like volume and freshness, right? Because freshness is one of the key elements day in and out data engineers fight for to deliver to, let's say, the AI team or the data analytics team. And hence, it's not just about being able to demonstrate I have, we have the desired data quality, but from a data governance standpoint, it's also important to easily or being able to practically and pragmatically evaluate the data quality. And then that's where quantifying data quality becomes extremely important. And that's one of the key, features and elements that we from Sixth Sense Data Observability have in our platform. We take multiple elements into consideration and have a quantified data quality score, which then can be leveraged across the teams and the data governance related teams as well. So that way, they're talking in the same language. And let's say there is a chief data officer who's looking at the data utilization percentage, and every company is looking at increasing it, right? So
Yeah.
only if the data quality is improving will the users become more confident in using your data, and only then will the data utilization percentage increase. And that's something that the CDO will keep watching out for. And all of this can happen only if you have a proper governance or data quality. And there are a lot of desired outcomes and byproducts that come out of this, which are crucial. Some of them, which you see here, which is your models are running bias free because they have the exact freshness of data that they need, the kind of volume that they need, and they're making safer predictions, right? Not just in e-commerce, but the predictions in life sciences become all the more crucial. And that leads you to trusted AI, right? So trusted data it is your data quality that you can trust, which is quantified, and hence your AI becomes all the more trustworthy. Not just your AI, your analytics as well. Your analytics is running a lot of models. Your analytics also becomes all the more trustworthy, and that's where boardroom conversations are more productive in taking actionable decisions that yield results. With one of the clients that we're working with, there is a daily stand-up that the managing director has with his team, and many decisions were not yielding results. So one of the things that we did was, offer them the quantified data quality, and every report that they're looking at, we give them the data quality of the source tables for those reports, and with confidence they can decide whether to roll that decision or not. And that's where you have much more control on the kind of rollbacks towards failures that happen and the things that you have to rework. Overall, again, when you have a proper governance or quality, you'll see less and less schema drifts, and even when the drift happens, you're able to catch them in a timely manner that does not impact, right? And of course, you have a much more control over the outliers. There'll always be outliers, but do you have those in control? That's the question we would like to answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you stated, I mean, this isn't specific to any industry. You need to have this in
Yep,
place and proper tools to be able to have an observability effect to make sure that the quality is there.
absolutely. Just cannot be ignored. All right.
Mhm.
So on one side, you have the data quality, but then if you look at multiple teams, one of the popular ways in which the teams are structured is the team which is looking at the ingestion layer, then you have the transformation ETLs going on, then you have the team looking at the storage, the lakes, and so on, and eventually the consumption layer. Now, does each of these layers, or do each of these teams, in addition to knowing what's happening within their data source, do they have the know-how of what's happening with the data and the system that is pushing in the data into their data source, and what's happening to the consumption layer or to their consumer once they push the data out of their system? This is very crucial to understand because I'll just take an example. So we were working with a client who had a data incident, and the storage layer, the bronze and the silver layer teams, they said, oh, our data is really good. According to the data health quality that you're working with us with, it's showing super healthy. So we're good. But the Power BI team, which is consuming it, according to their calculations, it was bad. Now they got into a tussle and it went on for a week. And then the CDO had to come in and say, guys, get your act together. I need you to fix this in the next 3 hours. Otherwise, we are out. Right. So at the end of the day, do teams have visibility of this? Is the crucial question they need to ask themselves. And that's where lineage becomes very important. While individual systems on their own have their own lineage, having a lineage that cuts across your end-to-end data sources is super critical. And there's another case where we're working with our e-commerce company, which gets information from 25 to 30 different sources. This is related to the competition. This is related to some brand information, some data we purchase, and so on. Now, when things go wrong, it could be related to some PII information that got into a marketing system where it was not supposed to, or one of the pipelines broke and there was no fresh information. Now, which of the teams in this end-to-end data hop was responsible? Getting to that is very crucial to fix. And that's again where the lineage becomes very important. Now,
Yeah.
this is where to make things easier and actionable. Six Sense data observability comes in with one of the features which I believe should be something that should exist in all of the solutions or in the governance framework, which is when you look at your end-to-end lineage, if you have an automated system when the monitors are set up for all the kind of data quality checks that you need to have. Now, it's not just a one-time setup, right? So can you stitch a story together for your end-to-end lineage and then keep visiting that state on a timely basis, right? Because the kind of data that you're dealing with changes literally on an hour basis if you're working with e-commerce and life sciences. So this is again very deeply coupled with your data quality. So your data quality asks are changing, which means your data lineage setup also has to keep changing. And that's where we have a state-of-the-art AI that will keep studying the monitors across your data stack. It's not just looking at individual silo data sources, but across your data sources. And with the click of a button, can the AI guide you towards changing the design or the strategy of your monitors towards better outcome, which is improving your data quality and hence the utilization percentage, right? So that's very crucial. Eventually, all of this would lead to having the right kind of business impact knowledge. And then that's where being, I might sound like a broken record when I keep coming back to this, which is from a technology perspective, from a platform owner perspective, am I able to demonstrate data quality and lineage? At the same time, the ones who are evaluating from a data governance perspective and scrutiny standpoint, are they able to consume what you're demonstrating and say, okay, fine, now I can trust whatever you're demonstrating and sign off on that? That's going to be
Yeah.
critical.
It's critical.
Yeah. And in all of this, it's not just from this standpoint, but also when incident occur, getting to the root cause and fixing them, in terms of your mean time to detection and mean time to resolutions, will come in very handy. And once you start doing this, you're winning a higher level of confidence from your audit and compliance teams and the data governance teams, because there are no surprises. There was an incident where the internal audit team, they signed off on the compliance audit, but when an external firm came and did it, a third party, they figured out there were a couple of other sources which were not a part of the audit. This happened because there was no complete lineage, and when the external body, due to their expertise, dug up, they found out something, and the end-to-end lineage was missing, and this led to a failure of the audit. If this lineage existed, then a compliance related audit would have gone through smooth. So yeah,
Right.
multiple different layers in which data lineage can come in handy. All right, the next is the data security, and this just cannot be ignored. One of the instances that come into my mind is the company level security, and also let's say the federal bodies, they have a different level of security asks and protocols. Now, many of these, they could be different, but when you look at these asks as a Venn diagram, how much of how big is your Venn diagram is something that is crucial, and especially security becomes all the more important with data in transit, right? So do you have all the know-how in place? And companies day in and out work with encrypted data, personal information. So how are you protecting this sensitive information? And from a governance standpoint, one team might look at certain columns as confidential, whereas other teams may not look at it as confidential. So do you have that understanding of the confidential levels, and what is seen as confidential by each of these teams is very critical, because that defines how you're designing your monitors, and hence you complying with not just the company policies but the laws of the land as well. If you're operating as a global company, things change with every jurisdiction, and that's where preventing unauthorized access and clapping the breaches become all the more important. And not just this, but have you trained your personnel, everyone who's working directly or indirectly with the data becomes all the
Yeah,
more important. And with all of this is what you can secure, reliable insights, right? Because at the end of the day, boardroom level questions, one of the questions is, did this data security layer do its job in kind of bringing the kind of data that you're bringing here, right? Because that's the responsibility that they have as well. All right. Again, data ownership. While this is common knowledge, but it's not a common practice in many cases. One of the things that come into my mind is the 2020 breach that happened with Twitter, where one of the employees got hold of Twitter accounts, or X, as we call it now,
X.
of
Mhm.
X accounts, of X handles of some of highly reputed and people at a very high level, and started tweeting on behalf of them, and it created such a bias, such a ruckus, and no one knew how this happened. So apparently, the person, or the number of people who had the access had more access than they had to have, right? So now it was a clear miss on the governance, one having the governance in place and having a regular cadence of that data governance being checked, and making rectifications if necessary, right? And that would have helped, and not just with the time to insight in terms of how the access control is working, but at the same time, cutting the losses, right, as early as possible. At the end of the day, it's the question of reputation of the company, but not only at the incident layer, but also in terms of utilization. This becomes important when you go to your CDO, or when you go to different consumers of your data. You're able to demonstrate very clearly, and this again, on top of your data quality, across your lineage, how is the access control working? And only when they have the confidence that the right kind of people with the right expertise across a period of time, and who've ensured that not many data incidents that can lead to a huge loss, that's a state that they've maintained, is when they're more open to utilize your data, right? It's not just about the data being safe, but if I'm a business, I don't want to be a part of a future breach that happens because I don't know what I'm going to be responsible for, right? And
Right.
that's taking stakeholders into your confidence becomes all the more important. And this is something that cannot be ignored. And this has to be visited time and again in conjunction with your lineage, and with the security and overall data quality as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So now, of course, there are a couple more elements out there that you see. And once you have a good data governance across all of this, your data discoverability, not just with confidence, but it also becomes all the more easy because people are more confident to come and explore the data, use them, and more importantly, socialize about them. And that's where more and more of your data has the readiness, so to say, right? And that's where we always come down to. Can you make your data trustworthy, and that will have your AI become trustworthy, and hence your overall business starts moving in the right direction. So data discoverability and readiness are the other two pieces of the puzzle, and all
Right.
of this become a crucial part of your holistic data governance framework.
Well put, GK. I mean, this kind of puts the components of this in place to, as you call it, a holistic view of your data and be able to manage your governance.
Right. So very often we get this question, what's alerting and what's monitoring and what's observability? What differentiates this, or what are those 10 walls that differentiate them, right? So
Mhm.
that's one of the questions that popped up as well. So yeah, alerting, yeah, it's at the rudimentary level where a system would just tell you what went wrong. And this is extremely reactive. You get certain notifications on anomalies that have occurred and you take action about it, right? But then moving up the value chain, you have monitoring, where you're driven by metrics, you're driven by certain charts that are slightly complicated, trying to give you trends of what's happening. And also, are you adhering to a lot of SLAs that you've set? And how are we doing overall over a period of time, right? But still, it's in a reactive mode, but better than alerting. But where we want to move as an industry is towards observability, which is more context driven. And that's what we've been talking about. Does every individual, or do maximum number of individuals and teams have the business context and why they're doing what they're doing? And this is where we work off of metrics, traces, and logs. And also we have enriched RCAs coming off of the lineage. But where we want to go to and what we want to offer and offering also is the business anomalies, right? It's not just saying, Mr. Data Engineer, here is a pipeline that keeps breaking on a weekly basis. And here are the steps that you might want to take quickly based on the historical information that we have. But what if you can tell him, Mr. Data Engineer, here is a pipeline which brings in crucial information from X number of competitors, and this is relied upon heavily by our pricing team to forecast the demand and the kind of pricing that would be compelling enough for our customers to make a purchase. Then he knows the usage of this, and he knows that this is crucial because especially in the time of super sale, the prices go haywire up and down on literally minute basis. And when he knows the context, he is able to prioritize that kind of an issue much before anyone does it for him, right? So that's where we want to get into. Or it could be for a compliance, upcoming compliance audit. When someone, has certain issues with freshness and certain data quality checks, sure, they're going to fix it. But what if there are multitude of those issues and the system is able to tell you, the person who is managing a bunch of data engineers, hey, Mr. Manager, you have a compliance-based audit coming up in 3 months. If these three issues continue to exist or continue to reoccur, then there's a 50% chance that you'll fail the audit for this particular business, right? And you might lose the trust and they might end up having their own setup, right? So that kind of business anomalies is where companies can have a real good edge in terms of taking quick actions, and systems
Mhm.
move to states where auto healing is a possibility and also a lot of predictions occur, and that frees up your time in terms of focusing more on evolving your systems rather than firefighting issues. And that's where this is always our utopian dream. I'm a Mission Impossible fan, Ethan Hunt, and your data-driven decision making. At the end of the day, we call data as fuel. Yes, it is fuel, but how much is it? How much of it is able to help you in taking the right decisions? So it doesn't have to be a Mission Impossible gig like a circus, risking your lives and time, but it has
Yeah.
to be some sort of a Zen mode where you're sitting at your desk with all the calm and composure that you need, and you're very much aware of what your quantified data quality is, how strong your end-to-end data stack is in terms of the lineage across multiple parameters of your focus, At the same time, you are feeling happy that the kind of security that you've promised to your customers and businesses is intact, and very less chances of you being a part of the breaches, or even if it happens, you're able to mitigate them at the earliest possible chance. And thereby, you're not just managing your data, but we're helping companies nurture their data to the kind of destinies that they want to. And as a product manager, that's always been my passion. And that's the kind of systems that we build. So Wes, in terms of how do you look at this from a US-led market and then extrapolating it to a global level, right? So now that we've said everything, would you want to touch upon the key bullets that we've heard thus far?
Well, yeah, I mean, standardization is key to this. I mean, even going back to what you just wrapped up with, the ROI on this is important. If without this tools in place and what we can provide with something like 6 cents is the idea of just burning those hours. If the notification keeps you from getting, let's say you've got a number of these per month and it burns up your staff hours, that's just basically pulling on the salaries and the time of these people to do this without having something in place to be able to notify you and let you know where the issue is. You're just spinning your wheels on it. And if you reclaim those hours, you can put those. There's the payback. Just reclaiming those hours from what you can put in place. So standardizing on these signals, the freshness, quality, the schema, is important to this too. Other than that, you can see here, from what we've discussed, that we'll make the lineage as part of this. I think the other things that we need to do is talk about um, the payback, right? And that comes in trusting your data, trusting that you know that by putting the governance in place, you understand what's going on in your environment.
Absolutely. So, and that's where, right, ensuring that the right kind of freshness SLOs are there, and also the kind of volume with the right kind of checks and balances, and more importantly, how all of this get affected by the schema changes. I know we keep repeating this, but crucial elements and
Yep.
is what needs to be taken care of, and that's where was the point, the good point that you bring up, which is and lineage happens at various levels, right? But are we able to achieve a column level lineage is something that is very crucial. And then that's where Rakuten 6sense data observability helps companies in not just thinking about it, but also getting to know where they can RCA things. And we do it at a column level. And all of this is automated, a very quick, business friendly way of setting the data sources. And before you know, the end-to-end lineage is set up for consumption. So that's where we believe in a noise-proof alerting, because you will be bombarded with a lot of alerts and notifications. But how much of it do you actually use, and how much of it can be actually used? Because there are a lot of important ones that get ducked under the noise, and you won't get to meet your SLAs, and escalations blow up. And that's where a lot of intuitiveness in terms of summaries that different users can act upon, and letting them know what the impact radius is something that we help companies with. And also, while this is at the ground level, but how are these helping move the critical KPIs for the businesses and giving them a true state of the anomalies that are coming? Because at the end of the day, we started the discussion with data quality, that data quality checks that we need to have, majority of them which will be defined by the business. Now, going back to the business with how we're performing will also help them evolve those data quality checks by giving more context, and helping the very good feedback loop coming into the data platforms, and not just with storing the right kind of data, but also helping nurture data in the right kind of movements. That's where the ROI is, right? So you have the right
Yep.
kind of inputs that are coming, lesser number of incidents. And like you said, Wes, people are spending time on more productive things than just burning themselves out. And that's where you focus more on the results that the data can give you than fixing and patching and band-aiding the data. So we've seen a lot of impacts that we've been able to make across different sectors. With one of the global banking sector, we were able to bring down the mean time to resolution down by 94%. And during this process, we were able to close a lot of audit gaps, a lot of non-conformances that kept repeating, and they kept wondering, how do we exactly fix this? And that's where our end-to-end automated AI-powered lineage came into play, and they're able to tackle a lot of the non-conformances and start gaining the reputation of the governance bodies. With one of the SaaS companies, we were able to cut down the noise, so to say. Much of the alerts were false positives, but with our data observability, the kind of AI-powered monitoring that we have, we were able to bring down the noise. At the same time, they had a critical business KPI, and we were able to bring in a huge amount of boost in terms of the reliability it had. We also worked with the airline operations company, and they were dealing with a lot of erroneous anomalies, false positives that really impacted their performance, which they had to focus on. So we were able to help them as well. And also recently, we're working with a global wellness company. We were able to achieve a lot of errors that were going unnoticed or unidentified with the crucial business reports, being able to help them identify those schema changes that were impacting these crucial reports. They had the issue of either over manufacturing or under manufacturing, and also their logistics and warehousing that had a ripple effect. So being able to touch upon the improvements that made a business impact across the lineage and modern data stack is something that was a very enriching experience. All right, so yeah, you've heard a lot. We talk about data governance, data observability, the issues, the incidents, the guide rails, and so on. But all right, how do we do this? So this is where, if you're interested, we have a 30-day, 60-day to 90-day rollout plan, where in the first phase, we try to learn about your data sources, what are your business asks, and we'll try to baseline the signals that you need to work on, and also get into certain master tables or critical assets that you have and start with the pilot. And then from there, we move on to slowly looking at routing the ownership, and also looking at the business related KPIs. We can pick one or two of them for your senior management, and we can go and demonstrate them. And we have some weekly reports and mean time to resolution reviews. So that way we step up with the confidence level, at the same time demonstrate the value that we are able to bring in for the business as well.
Hey, GK, we got some questions in the Zoom chat. Let me read those to you. Let's kind of dig into that.
Perfect.
First one here is, in your opinion, is the data governance team a separate unit?
Good question again. So data governance can be a separate team on its own, like a centralized data governance team that spans across the organization, going beyond the data platform team and so on. But like we began with this particular discussion, it doesn't hurt to have a data governance champion, and who can be a representative of the data governance team itself, who understands the policies, who also engages with them deeply in terms of discussing with them how the tech is evolving, and maybe a partner with them in the way the policies are getting created. So that's why there's a deep alignment in terms of how the tech and the decisions are evolving, and also learn from them in terms of how the industries and the overall jurisdiction related governance also plays. So that way they're engaging with them right from the start of the cycle, as against they're completing a project or building a platform and then getting it audited. So works either ways. Some even adopt the methodology of hiring a third-party data governance. That's fine, but our recommendation would be to strongly engage with them right from the stage of the conceptualization, which should really help.
Good, good. Let's grab another one here. Yeah, when audits happen and there are non-conformances that come up, generally that's the case. How do we anticipate them prior, and what's the recommendation?
All right. So yeah, just like data governance, the compliance audits again, they're looked at as an afterthought. One of the key things that would truly help is looking at the internal policies and how do they match up against the policies with or the lens with which the external party would look at them at. We touched upon an example earlier in this discussion where an internal audit happens, everything is fine. But when a third party, compliance audit happens with the view of data governance, then there are some non-conformances and surprises, right? So that's where there's a delta there, and that can be knocked off if the third party is also engaged in the capacity of, let's say, a knowledge transfer, or there's some kind of a training that happens so that it doesn't have to come till the end, and where decisions have to be taken in a rather hasty manner because you have the deadlines for your clients or the deadlines to release your product to have that competitive edge. And that's where usually companies are okay to take certain compromises. They say, yeah, though the non-conformance criticality is high, maybe it's not time critical as of now. Such decisions are made at times and they just get forgotten, only to be revisited later when some incident happens, and that could be disastrous. So having a deep alignment from amongst the tech product engineering teams, with the AI teams, with the internal auditing teams, and the external auditing teams, the lineage, if you will, right? So that sort of helps avoid as many surprises as possible. Of course, there are always going to be laws, governances that evolve, as long as it's not something major that would hurt people in the long run, is something that's advisable. One of the
Okay.
things that would not also hurt is have some mock audits done, just like platform teams and tech teams do this mock drills to be habituated with the incidents and the reactions that one needs to take. Mock audits won't hurt as well.
Okay. Well, here's one that I'm quite familiar with. We're working on this now here. Do you have a case study of solving this with life science world, the
Absolutely.
life sciences?
Absolutely. One of the recent clients that we signed up is one of the global wellness companies out there in the world. And they've had multiple issues when it comes to data. The report's not looking correct, and they were crippled from taking impactful business decisions. And it would take them weeks at times to know where the issue is and figure out, okay, that someone who's changed the schema that might not have the authorization to do so, but they did it. But then to figure out who exactly that did it, and eventually the changes that were made there broke certain reports. Either the relevant data never came in, or it came in a manner that the report didn't expect, and it kept ignoring it. So this would have a ripple effect with a decision being taken to expand in a new region, or alter the stocks that were to be sent to a certain, let's say a pin code or a region. And then there is the warehousing logistic aspects related to it, all went haywire. And warehouses which actually expected stock didn't have it. Warehouses already had stock, were overstocked, right? So some of these, is what we are working with. And they also are going through a massive system modernization drill. And then that's where them being able to take the decision of going through the migration. And one of my close friends always refers to data platforms and overall scheme of things as being able to deal with your attic, where you have so many different things. And because of the legacy, either you don't know what's in there, and also you don't want to get rid of certain things, and you're not able to decide. And that's exactly what happens during the times of migrations, where there's so much of information that hasn't been used since a long time. Paying attention to those, identifying them, talking to the businesses, and ensuring that you're getting rid of them is going to pay rich dividends in the long run. And that's where data observability, kind of a platform, comes in. And how do you watch the transition of the data, the movement of the data in real time, as you make those changes in terms of taking the chance to correct certain validations, add certain validations, do some standardization, do some normalization to the data, watching them in near real time will help ensure that you're taking the right call of calling the migration complete, decommissioning the legacy system, and with going ahead with high levels of confidence with the modern system that you have.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, I got a question. This is one for me. How do you view data governance from a regulatory perspective, particularly for the US?
Oh, that's a good one, Wes. We know that back in the US, FDA is one of the highly regarded institutions, and not just in the US, but there are other countries around the world. India, for instance, if there's a drug that is approved by FDA, the Indian authorities have a higher level of confidence in terms of approving the drug as well. So that is the kind of reputation that FDA has. Now, I've worked with life sciences companies in the past as well, or from a technological perspective and systems that help manage the overall dossier that is submitted for the regulatory bodies. Now, more often than not, we think of these technological solutions as something that would cater to the life sciences companies who are building those drugs, making those going through those clinical trials and going for approvals. But when it comes to regulatory bodies, even they would find these sort of solutions extremely handy. And when these kind of solutions are adopted by both the parties, it helps bring about certain uniformity in terms of the lens with which they are able to view, and also the familiarity with which the flows work, and makes it all the more seamless and smooth in terms of having a common blueprint or a framework with which both the parties work. And that's where if the regulatory bodies also look at a lot of these things more in terms of automation, in a sense, of course, there'll always be a lot of manual scrutiny that happens, and they also have to maintain a lot of physical records for later auditing or reference purposes. But more and more, when we look at this, the federal agencies and authorities like FDA, they're also going through the modernization efforts, and hopefully we'll see a lot of these preventive solutions, such as our own 6 sense data observability, also being a part of the regulatory tech stack as well. And that's where the companies would know the kind of system that the approving authority is using, and being familiar with those flows makes it all the more easier for them to speak in the same language. Because one of the key troubles that happens is when a rejection occurs, companies struggle to figure out exactly and peel through the notes that the regulatory body would send them back. And in
Right.
terms of going back to their tech stacks, their softwares, their applications, trying to connect those dots become all the more important. And and also companies who build technological platforms like us, the challenge is, how do you convert the regulatory guidelines into a digital system or an application that would help automate all of those guidelines and ensure that there is compliance, right? So definitely a green field out there. Hopefully,
Yeah.
we see that in the future. Hope that answers
No,
you.
no. Yeah, no, thanks for that. That's good. Yeah, coming up on time here. Taking a look at it. Let's take one more question I got.
Sure.
Can data governance be an AI accelerator?
Absolutely. All through the discussion, we've touched upon the point that this has to be a proactive measure, and has to be a crucial step that needs to figure out in the plan, right from your conceptual stage, design stage, when you put in all those architectures from various perspective. And that's where a lot of companies, they do these POCs, do these pilots with a limited set of data. Maybe there's not a whole lot of monitoring going on, but when they go at it with a large scale, rolling out in production to a huge set of users, and that's where a lot of issues come up in terms of model degradation, or the model is subjected to a kind of data that it shouldn't be. Could be IP related issue, could be quality related issue, or a loyalty related issue. And that's when the usage of the AI comes to a screeching halt, and that can cripple business again. And though not many people view this as an accelerator, but from a long-term perspective, when you're already checking all the best practices, ensuring all the safety nets are in place, all the compliances are ticked off, and then you're out there with your AI journey, you would face technological challenges. You would have your computation, challenges as well. But at least from a data governance perspective, you won't have any breaks coming in from that side, if you want to call it that. And that's where eventually in the long term, it'll become accelerator because from the word go, you're having the data governance blueprint set in place. And for the subsequent evolution of your, the models that you want to build, the LLMs that you want to build, and as those systems evolve with the strong foundation of data governance, it then becomes an accelerator after your initial versions, and that's when companies will see that they can reap huge benefits off of this. And
Yeah.
of course, with the
Oh,
reputation that you as a company would have, with very little to no data breaches or no data incidents, it's all the more a high reputation you'll be looked at from the marketplace and from the customers as well.
yeah. No, good stuff. I look forward to hearing some follow-ups to these questions and additional questions as well. So thanks for that, Chike. That's very good.
Absolutely. Thanks for those questions and keep them coming, folks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. If all this sounded interesting to you, then we're happy to engage with you. Here is a QR code. Go ahead and scan it and book a 15-minute consultation with us. And we'll help you with the 30, 60 to 90-day rollout plan and make you data governance compliant and data governance safe and really help you nurture your data and bring about the kind of business impact that you're looking at and helping your businesses to achieve that. And of course, with all the AI initiatives that you've embarked on, we're going to help you with the AI ready data guide as well, and the unique ways in which you can have the ROI coming. So thanks for listening in. And this is Ganeshkumar, GK, signing off now. And thank you, Wes, for starting
Yeah,
off
thank you, Chike.
and having a nice discussion. And thank you everyone for asking your questions. We thoroughly enjoyed the webinar, and we hope to see you in the next one. And do feel free to get in touch with us. And happy to have a conversation with you and make a good impact to the data and the AI world out there. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Look forward to hear from you.